Hello, welcome to Cinema Savvy, and welcome back to another movie review. I'm Chris, joined once again with Tate. And this is sort of our final review, not final ever review, don't panic everyone, final review for the 91st Academy Awards. There's a few other movies that I haven't watched that have been nominated for like one Oscar. I think there's one that's nominated for Best Screenplay. The fact of the matter is, ladies and gentlemen, we're not going to be able to get to every single movie, try as we might, but I think we've done very well this year. I have definitely seen a lot of movies in the run-up to this week.
Yeah,
Still need to watch Green Book, which I'm going to plan on watching after we've done this review right now. But as you can see from the title, this is our review on the epic drama Alfonso Cuarón directed Roma. This is tied with The Favourite for being nominated for 10 Academy Awards this season, which is incredible. I suppose I should try and find a list of all those, but I mean, for all intents and purposes, it's more or less every single category, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, this has been sweeping the world by storm. Everyone's talking about Roma, and it's also... It's not making history. I guess it is kind of making history in some way. We were talking a little bit about this before we went live. It's not the first Netflix movie to be nominated for at the Academy Awards. There was Mudbound, which I think was nominated for 4, but this is the first Netflix movie to be nominated for the Best Picture category. So it is still making history in that regard. And yeah, it's definitely going to be an interesting review because I know that our opinions slightly differ on this one. But you've got the trusty IMDb if you want to go into.
I do have the trusty IMDb. It's a very, very short one as well. A year in the life of a middle-class family is made in Mexico City in the early 1970s, which doesn't really explain the plot at all, even slightly, because this was, in fact, it was based upon Alfonso Cuarón's childhood. And it was almost like a dedication to his maid who looked after him. And there are loads of deep themes running in, such as family and kind of the connection between that, relationships, and just generally how people are treated within the world, as well as there being political commentary on Mexico during the 1970s to go in throughout.
And not just on the 70s as well. Like, I know the movie's set in the 70s, but this definitely has staying power with stuff that we're seeing today in the political world as well.
Definitely. And yeah, it's one of those films where it's very interesting. It falls into the category of what most people would call films as being artsy wank. Which is
that a term coined by me, by the way? Sounds like something
I believe it actually probably was.
Yeah.
But it's a black and white foreign language film.
The second black and white foreign language film I've seen this Academy Award season so far.
The second black and white foreign language film with deep running themes that kind of make you feel and think at the same time. As well as having a 18 rating, I believe it is.
I'm unsure on the rating. It's definitely an R-rated movie, I would say.
Without spoiling the film, there is full frontal nudity.
Yes, that'll do it. That'll
probably push it up there, and heavy amounts of violence involved during the actual film. But to start off by saying it is a fantastic film. Just in general, for filmmakers and for people who appreciate cinema, it's one of those films for those people. It's definitely not for the masses, and I can tell you that because I started watching it downstairs with my housemates. They did ask me what the fuck I was watching, and it got to the stage where we got to the scene with the full frontal nudity, and it was at that point where I was like, okay, maybe I should watch this upstairs on my own.
If someone walked in on you during that scene, it would probably be easier to just say that you're watching porn at that stage. It really would.
Probably it would. It really, really would. But to start off by saying, it's very strange for Netflix to have a film like this in their catalog.
But we are seeing that more recently, where Netflix are picking up these, these massive projects, these massive movies. And I'm grateful for that. And I am glad that Netflix is sort of getting that looking now at the Academy Awards, and people are finally acknowledging that these are still movies. And we should say as well that this movie wasn't originally on Netflix. It wasn't sort of like exclusively on Netflix. It did have a limited theatrical release before. It was at film festivals before that. Then I think it got a limited release in the US. And then it was moved to Netflix shortly after that. So predominantly, yes, it's been on Netflix, but it has had that time in cinemas before that point. So I wanted to talk about Alfonso Cuarón before, because I know that for many he is hailed as one of the best directors. And you know what? I'm not going to disagree with that. I think he is absolutely a master of his craft. He's proven that time and time again in all of his movies, that every single shot is meticulously planned. Especially with this movie. This movie is probably the best example of that out of all of his films, or maybe Children of Men.
Yeah.
But the films he's made themselves, I've never been a huge fan of. I've either thought they're okay or passable at best, but I still acknowledge his skill as a director, and I'm not going to take that away from him. Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, to most people, is their favorite Harry Potter movie. It's one of my least favorite of the movies. It's my favorite book, but I didn't like the visual change to that movie, how it was so stark in contrast to the first two. It felt like a different Hogwarts completely. And I don't know, there was something about that movie that didn't sit right with me, whereas some of the other ones did. Children of Men, again, fantastic one-shots in that movie. Everyone knows the one-shot I'm talking about in that movie. Very interesting premise and story. The actual film itself, I don't get massively swept up in, or as hyped as most people.
I'd say it's one of my favorite films of all time.
I know it is one of your favorites. Gravity as well. Like Gravity, absolute stunning spectacle to watch. The best 3D movie I've ever seen. I can't imagine watching that film again in 2D, having seen it in 3D.
No.
But the film itself, I just thought was really just, I haven't gone back and watched it a second time, maybe due to the 3D thing, but I don't know. So again, in terms of direction, and I mean, he doesn't just direct his movies as well, especially not this one, Roma. He's not very humble when it comes to deferring to other people. I mean, he's directed this thing, he's helped produce it, he's written it, he's done the cinematography for it, and he's also the co-editor on it. So he definitely likes to get completely invested in his movie. And I mean, that shows. I mean, this movie is, regardless of what I think about it, and I'm going to get into my views on it in a minute, I am not going to deny that this is an expertly crafted movie from the top down. Every single second of this movie is carefully thought out.
The way I've always seen Alfonso Cuarón as a director is that he is this master craftsman who he isn't looking to entertain per se. He's looking to push the boundaries and tell the story in the way that he wants, and show how far he can push that area of his own cinemascape. And that was first seen, I'd say, in as far as directing and mentoring, in Prisoners of Azkaban, the first film of his, which I saw, where he changed the method of how the actors prepared for the role from the films. Because in the previous two films, the actors were just kind of there on set, they'd have the script, they read through it, and they go through it. He made them act like they were the characters. He made them think about how the character would act and become more into the character. And the influence on that was that throughout the films, they progressed further and further and further into their roles. Whereas with the first two films, they're pretty much there's no progression between film 1 and film 2, between any of the characters. Between film 2 and film 3,
it's a stark contrast.
On. It's ridiculous. And that's because he spent the time to sit down with the characters and push them in that way, because he thought, okay, if I can't push Harry Potter in a directing standpoint, I better push it in a character standpoint instead. And the next film that he went on to, or at least that I saw of his, which I paid attention to, was Children of Men, in which we always talk about that one long shot, but there are many, many long shots in the film. And in fact, my favorite long shot isn't the car chase sequence. It's the sequence where the baby starts crying towards the end. And that is fantastically filmed. The reactions from everyone and everything like that. And you start to get a feel of how he directs his films. You then move on to Gravity, which is one of the best directed films of all time. Storytelling and plot-wise, it's terrible. It's awful. I can tell you that now. But the actual direction of it and the way that it was filmed and the scope of that film is ridiculous. It's absolutely insane. And with this film, he takes it back a step, I'd say. It's a passion project. It's about his own personal life whilst growing up. And because of that, it feels like everything's being pulled together, and every single element of the film is thought out so meticulously, and the details inside the film are so ridiculous and so pinpoint. There isn't a single kind of scene or shot where I didn't think, wow, this isn't a good shot, or this isn't terrible. Everything came together so well with this. And the story doesn't have to be the most entertaining, because I don't think he cares about that. He cares more about the fact that he is telling this story. And this story is important to him, and therefore it's the story that he wants to tell. And the way that he's told the story, the way that it's directed, the long lingering shots, which you always see, the long takes, which drag on for eternity, which show kind of a live scene happening and playing out, makes you so involved with this film that you almost feel like a member of his family at the end of it. And that's something which I haven't felt in a film in a very long time.
And you kind of, I mean, it's going to be interesting because I think more or less we have the same views on this movie and we'll raise the same points, but where we fall down at is that you accept it for that. But you mentioned there about he doesn't really care about the story so much, or the story isn't the focal point. Well, that's a huge thing for a movie to me. So therefore...
I wouldn't say that the story wasn't the focal point. I'm just saying that with most films, they're out there to entertain. He is here to tell this story.
Yeah. And I mean, I like to have both. I definitely do. This movie to me, it's a 2-hour, 15-minute movie, I believe. And I was feeling that running time, especially towards the start. Having seen how it all plays out now, it would be interesting to go back to it, and maybe I will have a stronger connection to it. Kind of like The Favourite as well. I was initially sort of against that midway through the movie, and then I started to come more around to it, which is what I had with this movie as well. So maybe this will be one that I will go back to at some point. But my God, if you're not prepared for this movie, it is... pacing-wise, it is incredibly slow, and some people might argue, well, that's the point. It's showing the mundanity of her life, and, you know, being a housemaid to this family, they're all kind of swept up in their own world, and they kind of care about her, but in a very sort of distant way. There's a lot of scenes in this movie with, I'm going to try and find the actress's name here, Marina de Tavira, I think it is, who plays Sophia, the mum of the family. Also turns in a fantastic performance here as well, alongside Yalitza Aparicio. But there's moments where, you know, Cleo's character, the main character, has gone through some horrible ordeal, and she'll be comforting her for a second, and then something will distract her, and then boom, she's away with the rest of her family, leaving her alone. And the shot placement and everything with Cleo in the frame, she is always kind of off to the side as an afterthought, really, to the family. Not to say they don't care about her, they still do take her on like holiday trips and like help her out where they can. But it feels in a very distant, superficial way, showing that divide between the classes, perhaps. You know, there's a scene where they're watching TV and they say like, oh, can you like, and she's like sitting with them as a family. Then she's like, oh yeah, can you go and do something for us, please? And she has to leave. There's a lot of scenes like that. And I think that's definitely a commentary on, you know, the class system. And you can even, that's not just pertaining to the 70s. That's, you know, a thing that still goes on today, obviously.
But really with this film, there's a lot that's left on the table that you can kind of debate about and decide about afterwards, because something that I noticed in retrospect on this film was that it was told in black and white, which makes me think that it was told as if it was a distant memory.
Yeah.
As if it was a retelling. And we don't get a storyteller's perspective from this film. We just get her perspective of every single event. It's always her perspective.
And I look, and even how the film is shot, it feels very much like you're an observer looking into this scene. I will say, and I did kind of mention this to you and did raise criticism of it, a lot of the shots are kind of like this, like a really slow pan from left to right, sort of surveying the entire landscape. And, you know, if you did a montage of all the shots in this movie, you'd probably have something equating to the entire runtime of the movie, because there are so many shots like that in the movie. But I did appreciate that Alfonso Cuarón was able to use that style as an onlooker looking into this situation. And that might be sort of going back to your point, that that shot also, that filming style like that is almost like he is recalling that memory as well. It's like a window into his, you know, his previous life.
Very, very interesting enough, because I did like this film. Don't get me wrong, I did really, really like this film, and this film is a fantastic film for filmmaking perspective, even if I didn't enjoy the story so much. There is one film which I can compare this to. One single film that I could think of that I could actually compare this to on any level. And it's
Can I predict it? Can I predict it? I don't think
it's a film that I hate. I absolutely hate this film.
You're not going to say High Rise, are you?
I absolutely adore this film. No, I'm going to say Boyhood. As a reflection into the past and the telling over time, with a lot of long kind of shots, kind of letting you kind of think out what they're thinking on the screen and stuff like that. And I think the difference in me enjoying this film and me not so much enjoying Boyhood, because even though the reasons why I didn't like Boyhood was for the fact that I didn't like where the character ended up in the end, but that's part of the filmmaking, so I'm okay to accept that. But the problem that I found with Boyhood is that it did feel like the entire film dragged on with no end point, no end goal, no end resolution. Whereas this film does have multiple resolutions to its various different stories that it tells within the tale. And maybe that's where this film is kind of coming into my head, and I'm thinking, wow, this film is actually quite good, because I feel like there is still a point to it. There's a message behind it, and there is characters which I actually got on board with in the end. But it's the only film that I can really compare it to for people who haven't seen this film yet, and people who have seen Boyhood. But yeah, should we talk about some of the amazing shots in the film?
Yes, I mean, there's one in particular which I really don't want to give away. I don't think there's any point in doing a spoiler section for this movie, in all honesty. I think that you already know if this is going to be your kind of movie from the offset of what we've talked about. And if you've seen any trailers for it, you know exactly what you're getting into.
I'd like to start off by talking about the starting shot and the closing shot.
Yes, I wanted to talk about that too.
That is fantastic.
Yeah.
I've never been so kind of just taken in by just an opening kind of pan down.
Yeah.
It's one of the slowest pans I've ever seen. It takes like a minute to pan down. But the fact that it just slowly pans down on her washing the floor, and you can see the reflection of the sky, and I wonder how long it took them to get that shot right.
Yeah, and the plane as well. I'm wondering, when I was watching this, I was like, is that actually captured in shot, the plane, or is that added in post?
So no. Sorry. The amount of planes that fly over that certain area in Mexico, they weren't able to take it out of shot because originally he just wanted a blank sky. But then he realized, because there were so many frequent flights, and of course you won't be able to change the flights themselves, and he wouldn't have enough time to reset the shot and take it without a plane coming through in the background, or the noise of the plane coming through, without changing it in post-edit. So he just decided to start the film with a plane flying overhead as they're mopping, and finish the film in almost exactly the same way, but with a pan up.
My favorite thing about this movie, this is sort of tied with I guess this is more into the themes of the movie, maybe the characters, but it's also tied with the shots themselves, was the mirroring of shots like that you just mentioned, and also in terms of character as well. Initially, we see a huge divide between Sophia and Cleo as characters, but towards the end of the movie, not to say they go through the same experiences, but they seem like they form more of a kinship towards the end. They've gone through a similar thing where Sophia's husband has left them, has left the family, and also, you know, with Cleo, the person she was seeing has left her. Both almost, well, one, I can't go into spoilers, damn it. Something pertaining to the children, the same thing almost happened to the family as well at one point. And also going back to your opening shot of the water, and because you do sit on this shot for, it seems like, minutes on end as the opening credits go up, it does feel and sound like the ocean. It feels like the sea. And then later on in the movie, when we get to the beach and you've got those waves as well, I was getting a connection there with that as well. You could probably, we say this a lot with movies, but you could probably write, if you like looked into this movie and like analyze this movie, you could easily write a dissertation on this movie. In terms of how it's constructed.
So easy to do that. And there is one shot where we can't really talk about, which is the cinema shot, which I think is the best shot in the film.
Yeah.
We then also have amazing shots like the revolution shot, the fields of yoga or the fields of karate or whatever they were doing, and the hospital scene, which for me, I was slightly pre-warned on it. I read an article which said, you need to you will hold your breath during the hospital scene. And there are two separate hospital scenes. So the first time I saw a hospital, I went, oh shit, it's happening. And then the second time I finally understood why you had to hold your breath. And it's fantastic, kind of, it's his trademark kind of thing. And
it wasn't until midway through for me that I realized, my brain went, this is still one take. Like, that's incredible. Because often with like one takes, you don't sort of pick up on it until like your minutes on end into the take. But I mean, my God, can you imagine if something went wrong on this and you had to reset and do that? And especially, I'm not going to go into it, but the mental state that the actress had to get herself to in that moment would have been incredibly hard to keep resetting.
It's about 4 or 5 minutes long
Yeah.
for one take, and it is crazy.
Mhm.
It's absolutely crazy. And what's even better is that you have some films which are made to look like one take, like Birdman was one of the greatest recent examples of that. There are so many cuts in that film.
Mhm.
There's a ridiculous amount of cuts in that film. I think someone did an edit where there's a little dot that comes up on the top of the screen every single time there's a cut.
That's cool.
So you're able to see exactly when the cuts are during the film. This scene had 0 cuts, 0 chances to cut during the scene. It doesn't pan away for a single second. The only time it does kind of pan around just kind of shows the general scale, scope, and situation that they're in, which is crazy. And it does make you it does make your heart go, oh, Christ, like, it's happening and stuff.
And
like
even
that.
in that scene as well, and this is sort of a recurring theme throughout the entire movie, is that despite all these events and people around her, she still feels very alone. She still feels very lonely. And that's sort of what I said earlier, how like she's always off to one side of the frame. People will be talking about her or her situation like she's not there. And as the camera is always centered on her, you're focused on her as a viewer, despite the fact that no one really else is and no one else really cares. She's just sort of like another person, essentially.
Yeah.
That obviously brings into the class thing as well. They see her as lower class, so maybe they don't give her as much notice in that regard. You see that with the doctor of the family that just kind of neglects her in that moment. And that moment you talked about the fields of, you know, like the yoga, the martial arts. When you watch this movie, and although that I didn't inherently love this movie, I will say that I did find it very laborious towards the beginning and got more into it as the movie went on. I did get that sense of like old school Hollywood, you know, like the scope of everything, the amount of extras you have. Just when the camera pulls back and you've got these epic wide shots to take all this in. It is so impressive in that regard as a film. And, you know, I mean, we've got the Oscars tonight. Well, I'll be bigging up the live stream in a moment. But if this movie did win Best Picture, which I think it absolutely does have a very, very good shot on, I think that it's probably odds-on favorite to win tonight. I wouldn't be angry. It's not my favorite movie, but this goes back to your point about how it's not inherently an entertaining movie. It's just a showcase of pure cinematic talent, from cinematography to direction. And if you are like a film lover or like an artsy film lover, you're absolutely going to adore this movie. Every single frame, it sounds so cliche. Every frame is kind of a painting. You can tell that everything, the position of characters, the camera movements, the way that people are situated, everything has been meticulously planned. And I think you can read into the movie about the class system, and, you know, and obviously it's set at the backdrop of the Mexican Revolution as well. So there is that element to it as well. That you can also bring to stuff that we're seeing today, and, you know, racial tensions and everything like that, and going in today's politics. So there is a lot to be. It is a movie that does have a lot to say. I appreciate that this was a personal story that Alfonso wanted to tell, and I mean, I'm always up for that, for directors having a story to tell and wanting to get it across, and not just being sort of like a mindless entertainment piece that they're sort of roped into. But in terms of an entertaining watch, this did take a lot for me to get through. It did have me on the ropes a few times, but then when I saw where it was going, I did start to appreciate it, which now, having that notion in mind, I would like to go back and watch this movie again, with having seen it all played out, what the point of the movie is, and go back to it from the beginning and see this told from beginning to end again.
Yeah. One final thing that I'd like to add to this, because I did not know this until I literally just did a little bit of research just now. The character of Professor Zovek was a real-life character, a real-life cult icon, apparently.
Oh, really?
The wrestler who was played by I can't believe this is true, but the actual actor who played Professor Zovek is called Latin Lover. And he was a real-life cult kind of wrestler, and he has a film. He has a film called The Incredible Professor Zovek.
Oh God, is this going to be like a Roma cinematic universe now?
Oh my God, I cannot believe this actually exists.
Are we going to have like
it's a Mexican comedy film in the 70s, in 72.
Possible drunk watch along in the future, maybe, Tate?
Oh my God, definitely. If we can find an English version. But the poster for it looks absolutely incredible. It really does. So if you have a chance to look it up, go for it.
Yeah. Wow. So I'm kind of thinking about that movie now. Like, I really want to see that movie. Is it too late for me to watch that movie before tonight? Probably. I still need to watch Green Book. So I've said everything I pretty much can on Roma.
Yeah,
I don't know if have you said everything?
Yeah, I've said everything that I can.
So tonight is the night. Tonight is the big night, our annual Oscars live stream. We're going to have to get some sleep in before we do this thing. It's going to be very late. It always is for us in the UK. We now have times. They're on our Facebook and Twitter, but in case you don't have time to go there, I'm going to list off the times tonight. Starting off with GMT for us in the UK. So technically it will be the early hours of Monday. So tonight we're going to be going live at 10 to 1 in the AM, and it will be on till 5:30 AM. For people in Eastern Standard Time, it will be tonight, Sunday. We're going live at 19:50, and that will be concluding at midnight in the AM. And for people in Pacific Standard Time, it will obviously be tonight, Sunday. That will be at 16:50 in the PM, and we'll finish at 21:30 in the PM. As I said, times are clearly on our Twitter and Facebook, so go and check those out. Links to those are in the description down below. And it is going to be a very interesting night tonight. It's going to be very open, I think.
I was going to say, for me, it's going to be 1:50 in the morning.
Yes, you are an hour
Central
ahead.
European time, Central European Standard Time, 1:50 in the morning. But no, I'm really excited. I can't wait to win for the 3rd year in a row. It's going to be amazing. I need to make a speech actually, so I'm probably going to go and do that now. If I do win it for the 3rd time in a row.
As long as you're not going to be like that awkward Michael Keaton moment on the night of Birdman, where he had that Oscar, he had like his little note like prepped, and he was about to stand up, and then he wasn't named, and he kind of casually like folded his paper away. Don't be that guy, Tate.
Don't be that guy. Don't be that guy. Actually, I'd say this year is going to be the most interesting one because last year I think I had it quite early on that I won because I won in a lot of the smaller categories where you guys didn't. This year,
I know there was one year with where Suicide Squad won best.
Suicide Squad won best makeup,
point,
and I was the only one who picked it, and that's what I won by.
Yeah,
which was fantastic. But no, I'm looking forward to tonight. I've got some energy drinks on the go, ready to go. So we should be.
We should be good. I'm about to run into town right now after we hit stop on this broadcast. Before I watch Green Book, I'm going to run into town, pick up some snacks, pick up some essentials, and I should be all good to go for tonight. Going to get a power nap in. A couple of hours power nap should do me right, and then we'll be going live at the time, as I just said. It's going to be fun. It's going to be competitive. We're going to be talking movies. There's a lot of time to fill. We're not just going to be talking exclusively about the Oscars. I'm sure we're going to be talking about other movies. We'll also be giving our mini review on Green Book. George did a review for Green Book as a solo review, and I haven't seen it yet. And we've talked about pretty much every other movie that there is on the Oscars, so we'll be going into our reviews. It's just going to be fun. So if you've got a chance, come and hang out. It's going to be good fun, and you'll see our energy levels drop as the night progresses into the early hours of the morning. But that'll do it for our review on Roma. Hope to see you guys tonight, and until the next video, which will be the one tonight, we'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.